Hi, I'm Lenora.
I'm Kristen. Hello.
I'm Isabel. Hola.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm the creator of The Uprising Spark. I'm also the host of the On a Supper podcast. I am a coach for child-free women. I organize trips for child-free women only. And I am super excited to be here today with our guests.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I am also excited to be here with our guest today. And in addition to that, I am the author of The Age of the Child, which is a novel that digs deep into the psyche, I guess, of the choice to be child-free, while also questioning the pro-life position and exposing some hypocrisies.
Hi, my name is Lenora Faye. I am also excited to have our guest on the show today. I am what am I? I am a child-free lifestyle advocate, speaker, and moderator. I am co-founder of the 2022 Virtual Child-Free Convention, which is a free global event live streaming July 30th and 31st this year. And we are the three founding non-mothers of Childfree Girls. Joining us today is, as we announced, our special guest, T-Kea Blackman. T-Kea is a author, speaker, certified peer recovery specialist, and mental health trainer who reached out to us and has a powerful, moving story to share. So welcome to the show. We are happy to have you, in case you didn't figure that out by now. And I just also wanted to mention a blog post that you had brought to our attention. You wrote recently a piece called "I Have Bipolar Disorder and I Don't Want Children." So please tell us about yourself and a bit about what inspired you to write this piece.
Yeah, so I'm like, where do I begin? I'm all in the mental health field. So of course, you kind of mentioned everything that I've done, speaking at different conferences, providing mental health training. So I teach adult mental health first aid, just similar to kind of people that teach CPR, but it's more so how to recognize the signs and the symptoms of mental illness. And so I teach a youth module and I also teach an adult module. And I studied communication. So I currently also support a mental health organization as the director of communications as well. And kind of what led me to write that piece is, I would say, since I was like in my early 20s, I'm in my 30s now, I was like, I don't want children. Like, I just don't want them. And I remember talking to a mentor of mine, and at the time she was in her 30s, and she's like, you know, you don't have to have them. She's like, I'm not having children and I don't want them. And that was the first time I realized that that was even an option. I just thought like, I have to, like, I'm a woman, like, of course I want to have children. I should want to have them. And then as the years gone by, and here we are a little bit 10 plus years later, and that decision, it hasn't changed at all. And so I remember talking to my therapist, and she's like, well, write a list of reasons why you want children versus, you know, why you would want them versus don't want them. And so I wrote the list, and I had 10 reasons as to why I didn't want them. And I didn't have one reason as to why I wanted them.
So that's awesome.
So I'm like, well, I guess it's not in the cards for me. But I think, Isabel, I think you said this on one of the episodes where you said something about like, you have moments of wondering like if you'll change your mind. Sometimes I think that I'm like, am I gonna change my mind? But I haven't for over 10 years. And I remember my grandmother telling me, she's like, T-Kea, you've always said that. She's like, even when you were a teenager. Now, I don't remember that, but apparently I've been saying it since I was a teenager. So that decision hasn't changed. And then that just kind of led me to write that piece to let other people know you don't have to have children. And also, if your mental health is a challenge, you should probably reconsider if you want to have children.
One of the reasons I'm super excited about this, having you here, is because of the mental health conversation. Because there's still a lot of, I mean, especially in countries like mine, Latin American countries, talking about mental health is still very much taboo. If you tell someone you're going to the shrink, they're like, don't say that, you're crazy. Like, you don't even mention it, don't even think about going to the shrink because that means you're crazy, and everything that comes with it. and I've spoken very openly about my own mental health struggles and my family's mental health story. So I guess what I wanted to ask you is how how has your own mental health influenced that decision on not having children? Do you feel it was first not I don't want children, and then you realize, oh, this is another reason why I don't want them, or I shouldn't have children, or is it something that came before you decided?
Yeah, it didn't come till after. At first, I was like, yeah, I really don't want children. I thought about like the freedom and the flexibility I would have with my life. But then I had this level of awareness, like even to this day, a complete transparent moment. So like anytime life gets extremely stressful for me, even as a child, my mind would like automatically go to like suicide. Like that's just like anytime I was in like a high level stress, like that's just where my mind would go. And as an adult, I still struggle with that. Like I have to, in therapy, learn how to like rewire my brain from thinking that way since I was a child. And so I often think about that. Like if I have a child and here I am struggling with suicidal thoughts, not necessarily have a plan to do it. I haven't had a plan since that happened 6 or 7 years ago. But what I mean by ideation is more so like, oh, well, if I walk outside and get hit by a car, then that'll be okay. I'm not going to try anything, but I'm also not going to try to stop it. Like that's kind of when I get under a lot of stress and pressure, like that's where my mind goes to. And I have to constantly like work on that. And so when I think about that, I think about struggling sometimes not being able to get out of bed, struggling to take care of my hygiene, not being able to cook, isolating from people, and just not able to function. I'm like, how does that come into play if I have a child? Like, I just don't feel like I don't feel like I should like roll the dice and gamble with that. I don't think that's something I should do. And so that's just kind of what led me to that decision. I was just like, yeah, no, I don't think I should do that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I can relate to a lot of what you just said, and I think that there's a lot more that people need to do to bring more awareness into the mental health thing, and of course tied in with parenthood in general. So thank you.
So I'm curious if you've had feedback on the article you wrote, and also I wanted to ask you, there are people out there that feel like, well, that's still not a good enough reason to not have kids. Some will use that an experience similar to yours, whether they're going through it themselves, they will use a child as a possible way of in their mind fixing that issue. Recently, we had a discussion about a true crime podcast that was talking about a case where two parents or two individuals with mental illness had a child, and the thought was, this is going to take away from our problems, and we'll be able to put our attention on a child, with horrific results that actually happened. So, what have you heard? Have you heard anything? And what do you say to those people that would say, well, have a kid that's going to fix something?
Okay, well, for one, to me, when I hear that, it's like, so you're expecting your child to make everything better. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. To have them being responsible. And I don't even know, I don't know the best way to put this, because people are like, well, they're not responsible, but I think with anything. So for instance, someone could be struggling with depression and they are drinking alcohol or they're overeating, like it's kind of like a vice. And I don't know if that's the same correlation, but it's like you're doing something because you're hoping that it will cure something. But then to think about, that's not to say parents who have mental health challenges, they can't be great parents. I know plenty of them. But I have to realize I know, and I'm self-aware, and I have to do what's best for me. Just because someone else can do it, that doesn't mean I can do it. I know how bad my mental health can get. And so to put that pressure on myself, I'm like, I'm afraid that maybe if I was to have a child, they would end up being neglected, or yeah, have a great big support system, but ultimately the child is my decision and my responsibility. Then also another thing, what if I pass my mental health challenges on to the child? So now I have to deal with my own challenges plus the child. I don't, I just feel like that's too much to handle. And for someone who would say like, oh, it would make it better, I would probably challenge it and say, has it really made you better? Like, has it really, yeah, you may have, some people say like their children give them a reason to live, and that, you know, that works for them. And in terms of like the article, I remember there was, because it was republished on the Mighty, and there were like so many comments under it. And there was one person that said, I feel seen. There were actually there were multiple people who's like, I feel seen, I feel heard. Oh my gosh, like that's one of the reasons I don't want children. And I'm married to my partner and we don't want to have children. And then I remember a mom who said something like, if only I would have thought about that before I had a child. She's like, that wasn't even a thought. And then there was another mom who was like, oh, well, my husband, he's very involved and he helps me out a lot. And I'm like, that's great, but not everyone has that. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, people do what's best for them, but I don't know, just like alcohol doesn't cure depression or anxiety or any type of substances. Those things may numb it, or they take your mind off of it for a little while. So a child could take your mind off of your mental health challenges. That's not to say that. But what about those moments when the child isn't there, or your child is asleep and you're by yourself, or you're at work? I'm pretty sure those things still resurfaces. So is resurfaces a word? Resurface. I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't think that's a word. It still resurface. And there's no way that a child could cure that. That's just my opinion. Somebody could think differently. But I would probably say, I would challenge that and say, go see a therapist, because you will eventually find deep within that that's not the case.
You know, it's interesting. You just made me think of people whose parents have struggled with mental illnesses, and maybe there's also some addiction involved as well. And in the end, these children are the ones who actually have to take care of their own parents since they're very, very young. I remember I had in one of my episodes on the Honest Upper, one of the guests who came along, she's also child free. Both of her parents were addicts. Both of her parents were struggling with mental health. She was the eldest, so she actually raised her siblings since she was like 10 or 12. She had to like cook for them and take them to school and make sure that they were, being looked after, because their parents couldn't. So in the end, putting that pressure and that responsibility onto a child is completely unfair. Like, why would you have a kid if you can't take care of yourself? And then that kid's going to have to take care of you as well. And these are things that people don't even think about sometimes.
Yeah, they don't. And you know what's interesting, when you share that, it made me think about my story. So my dad struggled with addiction. To this day, he's still struggling with addiction. And unfortunately, I really don't have a relationship with him. That doesn't mean I don't love him, but it's kind of like I have to love him from a distance to protect my mental health. And my mother, growing up, I watched her be abused verbally and physically. And I'm the oldest of 8 children. So my mother never required me and made me say like, you have to do this, take care of your siblings, or you can't go. She's never did that. But as the oldest, I like naturally took on that role. I also worked at a daycare in high school, and I quickly learned that kids are not baby dolls where you can just dress them up really cute. I've learned that. And I remember being in high school, I took a child development class, and they were like, you can take home the egg or you can take home the baby that cries. You know that when they can like control the baby and it acts like a real baby. I was one of the few students who said, give me the egg. I'm like, I am not taking a doll home. When at my house at the time in high school, there were seven children under the age of 7. So my sister was the youngest and she was a newborn baby. So my house was already had a like, it was a lot of activity, like a lot of stimulation. And you're like, you want me to bring a doll? And I actually have a newborn sister at home. Yeah, no, I'll take the egg.
You should have gotten extra credit just by saying, look, this is what's happening at my house. I don't need this class. I mean, seriously, you should have just documented a day in the life of your house and should have passed with flying colors, because there's no better alternative than siblings, especially an infant. Wow, that's wow.
Right, and leaving high school to go work at a daycare. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I was just, I always think it's fascinating at what age people figure out, oh, it's actually a choice to, whether to have kids. Like Lenora, I think was a little bit older when that occurred to her. And Isabel, you two were like, it wasn't something, you weren't what they call early articulators, where you just know at 5 years old. Like some people know at 5 years old and they also know they don't have to. They're just like set, they're fine. You currently knew when you were a teenager, even if you don't remember, but didn't really know that you could choose not to do it until later. And what was it? I'm curious to know what it was that made you think it was a foregone conclusion. Was it just having been raised in a household with so many kids, or did you receive any kind of messaging, like when you're a parent, when you're a mom, and was there any kind of guidance in that direction? Or
yeah, so I mean, people did kind of say like, when you become a mom or whatever, but I don't feel like it was to the point of like trying to push that on me. I think for me, it was seeing, like, I remember being 12 years old and my little cousin, she lived with us. I kid you not. I'm from New Jersey initially. And I took my little cousin at 12 years old, put her in the stroller, and we went shopping to the downtown area of the city that I lived in at 12 years old. So that also spoke to like my maturity. And I started realizing probably that's like the best form of birth control. So I think probably just having those experiences with so many children, probably it just made me realize like, I don't think I want this for myself.
and I just want to know what it felt like to you when you learned that you didn't have to, when, oh my God, this is a choice. I mean, was there a sensation that happened? Did you have a party? I mean, like, what did that feel like?
I think it was maybe like a little bit of relief, because there were moments in my life where I was like, okay, am I less of a woman because I don't want children? But then another side was like, okay, I really don't give a crap. I'm trying to keep it PG.
You can curse all you want, don't worry.
So I'm like, I really don't care what someone thinks, because I remember you guys talk about this on the podcast, like when people like, or a lot of child people like, who are going to take care of you when you're like old? Like someone said that to me, and I'm like, I mean, well, I'm pretty sure I'll have a lot of money where I can have resources to make sure that I can. But I'm like, I'm the oldest of, well, my sister passed away, but I'm like, I'm the oldest of 7 children. Like, no, it's not my siblings' responsibility to take care of me, or my nieces. I'm a godmom, but I've also poured and mentor a lot of children. So I'm close to 100% sure I'm not going to be left on my deathbed alone. Like I come from a really big family. So I think for me, it was just like, okay, like, I'm like, yeah, I don't have to do this. But I feel like what helped influence that was I have 2 mentors, and like, they're like 10 years older than me. And actually like 2 weeks ago, one of them took me out to brunch, and she shared with me, like, she doesn't want children either. And nor does she want to be married. She doesn't even want to be married, but she's very like, she's like very career like driven. And that's like me. I know everyone, their values are different, but having a family or starting my own family is not appealing to me. Having a successful career is. So I think for me, when it was a sense of relief because I actually had relationships with two women who I look up to who were like, yeah, no, I don't want children. So I think that's kind of what helped me be comfortable and okay with my decision.
And I mean, again, that's a great example. It speaks to speaking out, or even just having those like one-on-one conversations with someone who also doesn't want to have kids. Just some people want to be silent, and I get it because it's not an easy topic, but when you can connect with even just one other person in that intimate setting, and how that has helped you alone, and you're celebrating with us on the show. I'll say that this is a celebration, because why not? I mean, it's just it just speaks to the power of saying to one person or to three or whomever, like, I don't want to have kids, or I chose not to have kids, and this is what life is like. And I wanted to add something that, add on to what Kristen had asked you in regards to, your mental health journey and experiences. How, or has knowing that you have a choice and that you don't have to go the motherhood route, has that contributed to your mental health wellness at all? Like, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, because and I remember somebody said this to me in one of the child-free groups, and it just like, oh my gosh. She said, I don't want to have to put someone else's needs before mine. And I never really thought about that until she said it. And I was like, yeah, I don't either. And so, but it made me realize that if I want to put someone else's needs before mine, I have a choice versus feeling like I'm required. And I say that to say where I feel like I have the flexibility to take care of myself. And that's not to say parents cannot do that, but it requires a level of planning, of certain levels of sacrifices where I don't have to make certain sacrifices. So for me, I can go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. I can take dance classes in the evening. I can work on my business part-time and do all of those things, go to therapy. And I'm pretty sure parents, they'll be like, oh, I can do that too. Yes, you can, but there are other responsibilities and plans and things they have to work around. For me, I can just get up and do what the hell I want. Like, I don't have anybody else to consider. Like, I don't have to take a child to school. I don't have to feed them, make breakfast, and figure out what to do with them on the weekends. Like, I don't have those things to worry about. And for me, I feel like by not having a child, it also gives me the opportunity to have children when I decide to have them. So a few weeks ago, don't ask me what I was drinking or smoking. I had a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 2-year-old the entire weekend. And so I do enjoy being around them, but it's like doing that 24/7. No, that is like way too much. And I did it to give my cousin a break because I know that she was struggling with her mental health. So I was just like, oh, I'll take the kids for the weekend. And so I feel like I have so much flexibility and freedom that like I can actually, it's easier to put my mental health first, because I don't want to say parents don't. I know it's a very thin line because, I know parents could come attack, and I'm pretty sure the comments may be a little crazy. But I feel like for me, it has given me the freedom to pursue my career at 100%. Yes, moms can be awesome career women, but again, there's just a certain level of sacrifice that comes with parenting that I don't have to worry about. And so I feel like I'm doing all these things for myself, and I feel like what's the best way to put it? I just feel like overall my mental health I don't want to say it's easy, because it's definitely not easy, I'm gonna say it's easier to manage because I don't have children. Like for instance, if I want to take a trip to Miami tomorrow, I can just go get that trip and be like, yeah, I need a little getaway from the Washington, D.C. area. It's a lot going on. And you know what? I'm just going to go to Miami for the weekend. I don't have to worry about getting a babysitter or what's going to happen with the kids. And so for me, I feel like that helps my mental health, having the flexibility of my time, doing what I want, when I want, who I want to see, when I want to be around kids, when I don't want to be around kids. So I feel like it impacts my mental wellness overall because I have more freedom and flexibility, and I get to choose when I want to put someone before me. I hope that answers your question.
It does. It's awesome. I mean, the other question is, what were you smoking? Sorry, I had to say that. I wanted to ask Isabel, if you don't mind answering the question too, because again, you have been open about your mental health challenges as well too. So if you don't mind answering, like, how has not having kids or knowing you have a choice that you don't have to do that, to go that route if you don't want to, how has that helped your mental wellness? And Kristen, you can answer that too if you want to, but I just because I feel like there are a lot of people out there that don't consider that part too. It's like the obvious things of not being a parent, of not having kids, but we all, mental wellness is vital to all of us, you know? So the more we can speak to how that helps, our choices helped, I think the better. So Isabel, if you don't mind answering.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love what TK said about I don't want to put anybody's needs before my own, because that totally reflects the way that I feel about it too. And my anxiety, I am 100% sure that if I had a child, it would just shoot through the roof. Like I would be anxious all the time, thinking about this kid. Is it alive? Do I have to feed it? Running. I mean, I would be like one of those overbearing mothers, I think, just kind of like trying to shield the child from everything in the world, which is already creating anxiety for myself right now. So I would be anxious for myself and for the child. I definitely feel that embracing the Childfree lifestyle for me personally was a very good choice in regards to not helping, but sort of feeling a little bit more normal, I guess, in this world. Because everyone has a different journey with their mental health issues. Everyone's stories are different. I go through cycles. And whenever I'm good, I'm like a fully functioning human being and I could be a great mom. Like I know that. But when I'm not, I can't even take care of my dog sometimes. It's not fair to the kid. If there were ever was going to be a child. So I think definitely I'm very grateful that I realized that it wasn't an obligation to be a mom after I became a mother. I'm so grateful for that, because I did actually, I think Kristen mentioned something about, when we sort of knew about it. I was the one who learned later in life. I was 33 when I realized that I had a choice. I could have been a mother by then, and I'm just so glad I was not. So yeah, that's my short answer.
We are glad too, because you would have come up with this idea to do Childfree Girls.
Exactly.
Kristen, did you want to speak on this at all? It's just, in your own wellness journey. If I'm just going to call it that, because I don't know really what else to call it.
I think the only thing I can say about it is that I know that I would be very unhappy if I did have kids. And if I am having a bad day or a bad week or something, like after my dad died, I was probably, if I had gotten diagnosed, I probably would have been clinically depressed for a couple of years. And so I can say to that at least I didn't have kids that I had to also deal with. I mean, anytime there's I don't know how many people have kids unconsciously, and by that I just mean actively, passionately, desperately wanting them, versus how many people have them because it never occurred to them that it was a choice. And for the people who did it because it didn't occur to them that it was a choice, it could have been any one of us, as we've established. And had that happened, and knowing that I don't want that, I can almost guarantee you I would seriously just be miserable. I mean, so not having them clearly is good for my ongoing mental wellness journey. Yeah, I think I would be a very angry person. I think I'd be a very sad person about all the stuff that I can't do because my time is that divided. And I think the thing about like comparing what we're able to do without kids, like your day, T-Kea, sounded perfect. You know, you wake up, you go to the gym, you go to work, you get to do all your productivity stuff and like this work you're passionate about, see a therapist, go to dance. And I was just like, man, what a day, seriously. And that is easier to do. Sure, I'm sure there are parents who can do it, but they have to fit it in with the kids. And so it becomes an all other things being equal thing. My day and a parent's day, let's say everything I do, a parent also does, but you have to add on the kids. So it is easier to not have them. I think that's just a fact.
And there's something too about not having that extra, your brain's not split between you and someone else that you legally have to take care of. And I'm sure, T-Kea, you've felt this when caring for your cousin's children or even your siblings. When you know that you're responsible for a child, even temporarily, there's a part of you that never sleeps. Like my nephews come over frequently, meaning like once a month, and they're older now, so they can get their own breakfast and stuff. But there's always a part of my brain that's not sleeping because I know that I am responsible. I still have to be the responsible adult. And while they're with me, it's like, I can do my thing, but they're still there. And then when they leave, it's amazing how tired I feel. And they're, the youngest is 11. They're not even like little anymore, because it used to be way more exhausting when they were little, in a fun aunt way. But I was just so tired. But even now when they leave, I'm like, wow, okay. Like there's a lot of mental space that's come back to me once they're out of my house, because I know that, okay, I'm just solely responsible for myself. So imagine doing all of the things that we all do on a regular basis, but having a part of our brain or soul or what have you focused like 24/7 on another being. I mean, that's a lot. And I can, to answer the question I asked you three, like if I need my personal space, I would be just as angry or possibly more than Kristen. Like I know when I can reach my limit, and luckily I can come back to my own space and no one's bothering me. Like I have no pets, no kids, nothing, no one's bothering me. But if I did not have that, and I learned that looking after children one summer, if I didn't have that, oh boy, that's not a fun Lenora. So, it's just, but you don't realize that, until like you become more self-aware as you get older and have more experiences. So yes, thankfully the child thing didn't happen before I realized it was a choice, because I was 22, so anything could happen. But it's just, it's important to, and we're taught that, you're supposed to, especially as females, you're supposed to make yourself a martyr. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself for the sake of the next generation. And okay, I'm not going to, I will argue against that, because, some of us choose not to. But if you choose not to make yourself a martyr, that's not wrong. You are not lesser than. So, it's just really important to speak up about putting your needs first, because we've seen what happened when people don't do that, and it's dangerous. So it's, if we, advocating for putting your needs first, that doesn't mean you're a terrible person. You're probably a better version of yourself for doing that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I feel like, for instance, so you're like, oh my God, what were you smoking then? Like I remember like I had a godson and a goddaughter, and I had them, spring break is a week. They're older, they're 12, but still, I talked to their parents, and God bless them. And they share the challenges that come up for them. And I do my best to support them. And even I talked to multiple moms, and they're all wonderful. They're great to their children. I think mothers sometimes are superhuman, because it's like, I don't know how you guys do it, but you do it. But talking to them, it always reaffirms, like, yeah, no, this, this is not, for me. And so I don't mind being a listening ear, but every time they tell me about what's going on, there's a part of me that's like, thank God it's not me. Everyone, I think it also helped me realize, like, my bandwidth. Everyone's bandwidth is completely different. And so if a woman thinks that her bandwidth can handle it, that works for her. And I feel like for a very long time, I used to think to myself, well, if I don't have a child, then maybe, like, what will my life look like? But then when I started planning my life, I'm like, I have to get with you, Isabel, because I need to go on one of these trips. So it's like, I'm like, what would my life have been like? But the biggest thing for me, I just feel like what confirms that I made the right decision is simply just having the freedom to go after my dreams. It's like, I literally can do anything I want when I want. And it's like, for me, it's like the best feeling in the world. And I think even knowing that decision is so empowering. Like, I don't have to, and like, even my mom knows. She never really pressured me, but the one time, like, I did tell her, she's like, so you're not going to make me a grandparent? And I'm like, well, you have 7 other kids, so you're definitely going to be a grandparent. It just won't be by me, but and then after that, she's just, she didn't even bring it up anymore. It's just like, she already knows. And it's so funny because my little sister, she is 14. And we always have the conversation. It's like a joke. Yeah, Kea doesn't want kids. She's not having kids. Like, it's always a thing. And my little sister says, 14. Oh yeah, mommy, Kea's team F those kids.
That is so awesome. That's fantastic. Kristen, are you okay with that?
Yes.
I'm like, I'm not team F those kids because I do have children around me. But I mean, if that's how you want to put it, fine.
I mean, it sounds hilarious coming from a 14-year-old, especially 14-year-old sister. Have you had that discussion with any of your other siblings? Like, is that ever a topic that comes up just in passing?
Yeah, like, do they know it's a choice, right? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Well, either that, or if they've commented to you, because, I'm the oldest. I'm not saying my brother looks up to me, but, like, that many siblings, there has to be a few that look up to you because, older sisters, right?
So ironically, I only have, my sister, unfortunately, she would have been 30 this year. She passed away last summer. And so my only sister that I have is the 14-year-old sister. Everyone else in between are all boys. So I don't feel like they really care, honestly. Like, they know I'm dating someone and they're just like, okay, like, whatever. So I don't think they care. I mean, they range from 22 to 17, my brothers. So I don't think they really care, honestly. It's just, and what's interesting? So one of the things I think that I often struggle with is, will I be able to be in a relationship? I felt like it's going to be so hard to find a man because every man, in 30s and up, they're definitely going to want kids. Like, that was always, I struggled with that until I got into the relationship that I'm in. And he and I were talking. I remember, like, the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, I do not want children. And so I asked him his thoughts, and he's like, and he's a little bit older than me, like 5 or 6 years. And he's like, well, the older I get, the less I want them. I was like, oh, thank God.
That is huge and worth celebrating too, by the way.
Yeah, they do exist. They do.
I just felt like, I don't know, I was just losing like a little bit of hope, but and he and I will joke sometimes like about children and stuff, and he's just like, yeah, no, and I'll joke like, yeah, when we have a kid, he's like, girl, you don't want kids. So, so I mean, it kind of made me feel hopeful, like, okay, even if this relationship doesn't work out, there are other men out there who don't want children. So yeah.
Having a supportive partner, I mean, I'll throw it to Kristen on this one, but I mean, even Isabel, your experiences, like it's important, if relationships are what you want, I mean, I see it as a helpful thing to have someone on the same page. And also I really commend you for saying that, like, first thing, it's like, I don't want to have kids. Like, I mean, because that's a common question, is when do you tell somebody, when do you break the news? Like on a first date, on the 10th date, 10th year anniversary, like, it's just, it's
Hopefully
such
not the 10th year.
I know.
Can you imagine?
Oh God, I know. But hey, things happen. So it's just, it's part of the experience of being child free. I mean, not everyone has that experience, but it's a very common question, thought, concern, of how am I going to find someone, or is it possible, or how are we going to navigate this? Kristen, did you want to add anything towards that? You are our expert relationship guru on the show.
I've been married 3 times. I think I'm more of a failure than an expert. No, I'm just kidding. I don't consider divorce failure. I consider it wise. I guess I would just also say yay for putting it out there immediately. I mean, even though sometimes that doesn't work, like my second husband thought I would change my mind. He was like, yeah, sure, fine. Then after 3 years, he said, oh, I just kind of thought it was a phase. So sometimes people just won't listen. But as strongly as you can put it out there in the beginning, that's just great. And I'm really happy you found that you found someone, whether he's for now or forever, that made you realize, okay, so it's not impossible. This is going to happen. And I also want to apologize for mispronouncing your name earlier. Sorry.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's even just your story alone. It doesn't matter how many times you were divorced. It's just the fact that means that there are people out there. And I think even from my boyfriend, like, he doesn't even, I'll take kids for the weekend. He's like, yeah, no, I'll see you when the kids are gone.
Girl, bye. I would do the same if my boyfriend did that, taking kids for the weekend, honestly.
Well, but that's a good sign to me. I think that's a good sign, because it means that he's not shifting his mentality, because I think that would be something to watch for. And I'm not putting this out into the universe,
right.
So I'm not putting this out, but if suddenly he was like, you know what, you can have the kids over more, then I'd start being worried. I'd be like, wait, no, never mind. We're going back to be completely child-free living here.
Well, for starters, I have to thank you awesome ladies, because I didn't even know that child-free was like a movement. So I would say one day I was just laying on the couch and I put in Google, like, women who don't want children, or how many women don't want children. Cause I was just curious. I'm like, and I think I came across a stat that said something like 50% of pregnancies are planned. And I was like, I don't know, that sounds kind of jaded, but I that's when I discovered, like, I saw like a YouTube video, and then like I just got stuck in this rabbit hole, and then I started joining these Facebook group, and I was like, I found my people. Like,
that's so awesome.
So it was just like this. I felt seen. I felt heard. I felt like other people got it. And even though I do have the mentors who are child free, but they don't realize, like, it's an entire movement. Like, I sent them like your podcast, I sent them articles, I tell them like, oh, just search child free by choice or child free movement on social media, and all the, like, they didn't even know that was a thing. To them, it's just like, yeah, I don't want children. It's not like, the whole community aspect. So I think this podcast is awesome. Like, I love listening to it. I'm always sending episodes to people, like, well, more so for the people who don't want children, because, and it's funny, my mom's like, oh, you're doing the podcast today, and my sister was like, yeah, she's doing Team F Them podcast or F Them Children podcast, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, look, girls, if we ever need a name change, now we know what to call it.
F Them Children podcast.
Imagine major rebranding announcement. I'm kidding.
But yeah,
I mean,
thank you ladies so much though. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. I mean, thank you for supporting the show. We're happy that you found us. And, you know, I mean, we appreciate your candor, you being here, sharing your story, because again, the more that people are aware, the different nuances to being child-free, the reasons, everyone's experience, it just helps so many people. So we are very grateful that you reached out to us. So thank you. Okay, so how can people find you? You have a website, blog, plug your stuff, please.
Yeah, so www.TkeaBlackman.com. There's everything there. I'm kind of on social media. So since my sister passed away, like I took a break, like I deactivated all my accounts. So I'm slowly starting to come back around a little bit. I'm like LinkedIn and Twitter, haven't really got back to Instagram yet. But I am available. So like if anybody wants to email me, you can reach out to me, you know, on my website. But I think the biggest thing to, you know, for me is just like letting people know like they're not alone. And as someone who has survived a suicide attempt, sometimes I often wonder like, will I do it again? And like just having a kid and thinking that is just like a whole nother thing. So but yeah, that's how, you know, people can, you know, can find me, just, you know, my website and reach out to me that way.
Excellent. Thank you. So we will post links in our caption description below. That is it for today's episode. If you have any thoughts, comments, want to comment on anything you've heard today, please feel free to reach us at childfreegirls@gmail.com. Our website is also childfreegirls.com.
You can also find us all over social media. We are most active on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Childfree Girls. We also have this new thing. If you haven't heard it yet, it's called Dear Childfree Girls. So if you have any questions, anything in your mind, on your mind, I think it's how you say it, about the childfree lifestyle, whatever it is, you can send us an email, Dear Childfree Girls, in your subject, so we know that you want us to actually publish our comments. And the cool thing about this is you won't get one answer, you'll get 3 answers, because we all answer separately and then we put our answers together and we never know what the other one's going to answer. So that's a really cool thing. And if you have not read the ones that we've answered, just hop on to our website, childfreegirls.com. There's the blog and you can see the letters that we've answered before on Dear Childfree Girls. And we're also on Amazon. We have a book, Childfree Girls, Comfort Food for Thought. You can find it on Kindle and paperback.
You can also find it between the 2 Lenoras on your screen.
Yes, there are 2 of me now. Actually, there are 4. There are 2 on this side, 1 on this side.
You're everywhere. Give me more pictures, more Lenoras.
I was wondering if that was you. I was just like,
it's a hyper glam version of me. Yes.
Well, the only thing I thought was that lady's hot. That was the only thing I thought.
She is. She scares me when I turn around. If I'm goofing off in my office, she's looking at me like, get the fuck to work. So
that's boss lady Lenora right there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. My first question for you is, have you seen Lenora's glam shot? If not, you have to go to YouTube and watch this episode instead of just listening to it, so you can see this fantastic image, because it really is cool. It's awesome.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I actually wish that at the bottom it said in like a fine black type. I wish it said Lenora down there. That would be cool.
That's not a bad idea. Let me get a Sharpie. No, that costs a little too much to me to graffiti it.
That'd be bad. My question for this episode, for all of you listening or watching, is, has your concern for your mental well-being contributed to your decision to not have children? Or if not contributed to it, because that kind of implies that if you were, I guess it could be either. Yeah, have you just don't want kids and it's made you think about your mental health and where you are now and where you might otherwise be? Or did you kind of want kids and decide that because of your mental health, that would be a bad idea? We're just curious to know. If you want to let us know, you can leave it in the comments below. You can send it to us at childfreegirls@gmail.com. You know, I think Dear Childfree Girls doesn't even need to necessarily be a question all the time. If there's something you want to share with other people, so that as with this episode, I think there was a lot talked about here that will be helpful to other people. And if you have had an experience that you would like to share and you'd like us to post it as a Dear Childfree Girls letter without any of our reactions at all, maybe you just want to let other people know and get their feedback or hear their stories, you can also send that to us at dearchildfreegirls.com. But again, make sure to put Dear Childfree Girls in the subject so we know that you're okay with us sharing it.
Naked pictures of you attached to the letter.
No naked pictures.
No naked pictures.
You can
right?
be naked all you want. We don't need to see it.
I was like, wait, where did this come from? But okay. Don't forget to rate our podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would help us out a lot as well. Thank you.
Don't forget to tune in a couple of weeks for our newest episode.
Bye.
Bye.